If there was ever any doubt that we are living in the throes of Justin Trudeau's post-national state in which Canada has no core identity and no core values, the events of this past week, especially on Remembrance Day, should clear up any confusion. An Ottawa high school decided to play a Palestinian resistance song in Arabic during the official school Remembrance Day ceremony. A City of Toronto woke bureaucrat got up on stage at the official Remembrance Day ceremony in Toronto and slandered this country for its role in slavery. A York University lecturer filmed herself berating and swearing at veterans for marching on the street. A Nova Scotia high school told veterans not to go to the school in uniform because it might trigger and offend foreign students. And just for good measure, at the Saanich, British Columbia Remembrance Day ceremony, only one reading from a holy book was delivered. Can you guess which book it might have been? I'll just tell you right now, it was the Quran. You know, every single interest group in this country seems to get a month of acknowledgement. Pride Month, Black History Month, Islamophobia Awareness Month. But in this country, we only get one day for the entire country to come together and honor the sacrifice of hundreds of thousands of Canadians who died fighting for this country. And through Justin Trudeau's multiculturalism on steroids, that one day gets hijacked by foreign interest groups, by activists, and people who want to push foreign causes. To be quite honest with you, I find it absolutely disgraceful. The majority of immigrants who come to this country clearly acknowledge and honor the sacrifice of Canadian soldiers. They respect the military, they respect our veterans for what they have done. But there is a handful of newcomers in this country, a growing handful at that, who use every opportunity they can in their new country to advance their own foreign interests, who want to turn Remembrance Day into a day for Palestinian martyrs. It's really shocking that it even needs to be said. But Remembrance Day is for Canadians. It's not for Palestinians. It's not for Israelis. It's not for Ukrainians. It's specifically and solely for Canadians. Now, before you get into the show, be sure to drop a like on this video. Help us out by subscribing to the True North YouTube channel. We're bringing back a ratio of the week because I was able to ratio a particularly annoying person in this country who deserves to be shamed for it. We'll get into that later on. But the common question for the episode is this. Were the scenes that we have witnessed across our country on Remembrance Day a wake-up call for you, as they were for me? Let me know your answer in the comments below. Let's get into it. Justin Trudeau's extreme multiculturalism means less Canadian identity, less Canadian pride, and more concern about whatever foreign cause you wish. I hope none of you are expecting Canada's multiculturalism experiment to result in a reinforcement of Canadian identity, in a bolstering of Canadian national pride, to result in more unity across our country. Because as we are seeing right now, the exact opposite is taking place. On Remembrance Day, we learned that a high school in Ottawa, Sir Robert Borden High School, which in itself is a disgusting turn of events. Sir Robert Borden, of course, is the prime minister that led this country through the First World War. I can only imagine that he is turning in his grave right now overhearing this news. The principal at Sir Robert Borden High School decided that it would be appropriate to play a Arabic language Palestinian protest song during the official school Remembrance Day ceremony. Because that is a good way, I guess, to honor our Canadian war dead. Or maybe it's because he is caving to the pressure of a very loud minority of Muslim students who demanded that Remembrance Day include something that specifically acknowledges them. That we take time away from Remembrance Day to give a special shout out to Muslim students. You know, I bet when the tens of thousands of Canadian lads were dying in the trenches in France, their last thought was, boy, I sure hope that in 100 years from now, they start playing Arabic protest music on Remembrance Day. I sure hope that my country is unrecognizable for my great-great-grandchildren. That would be great. What a cause. The song was Hazam Salam by Mahim Ahmed, a Palestinian protest song often associated with anti-Israel imagery in the Gaza conflict. Pierre Poilievre and local member of provincial parliament Lisa MacLeod have called on the principal to be fired. And to be quite honest with you, I think he should be fired. This is a disgraceful decision. Either he did this on his own and thought that it would be a good idea, which is a fireable offense, or there is a group of Muslim parents at this school that have so much influence over this principal that he caved to the pressure meaning he should be fired because he's too pathetic, too weak, and too much of a coward to do the right thing and to stand up for Canadian values on the one day that we're allowed in this country to fully honor our veterans. And if we're being honest, let's just look at this principal here. He doesn't really strike the figure of someone who has a lot of courage and backbone. Anyway, Principal Hobbs here was forced to apologize for the decision to play this absurd Arabic language song, rightly so. But none of that sat too well with the National Council of Canadian Muslims, who felt that it is totally appropriate to play a Palestinian song on Remembrance Day. The National Council of Canadian Muslims wrote this on social media, taking issue with the local member of provincial parliament for daring to criticize a decision to play this Arabic song during Remembrance Day. Send a letter to stress that this kind of divisive and deeply inappropriate rhetoric coming from an elected leader is utterly unbefitting of anyone trying to lead the people of Ontario. It fuels harmful stereotype. It marginalizes communities. There is no place for this behavior in Ontario. There cannot be silence in the face of it. Of course, the National Council of Canadian Muslims would have a typo in their tweet regarding this. It's only fitting for them. But even more so, Mohammed Faki, I guess that's how you pronounce his name. I really don't care. He also took issue with Lisa MacLeod. Mohammed Faki, by the way, is a recipient of the Order of Canada, and he leads Paramount Fine Foods. Mohammed Faki wrote, "Let's be clear, at MacLeod Lisa has a problem with a children's song in Arabic that is literally titled Peace. It's too bad that this unhinged puppet loser is getting out of politics. Her defeat would have been a lot more fun." Mohammed seems to think that he and his fellow Muslims can insert whatever foreign cause they wish into our Remembrance Day ceremony. Mohammed Faki was not born in Canada. He is an immigrant to this country, and yet he thinks it's appropriate to shoehorn Arabic language music into our Remembrance Day ceremony. I wrote the following: "Why is a foreign song being played on Remembrance Day, Mohammed? This is the one day of the year when all of Canada honors our fallen heroes. This is not the day for you or others to protest your foreign cause. Have some class and show respect for the people that sacrificed their lives for the country you now call home." He only was able to muster 1.6 thousand likes, and I was able to ratio him with over 2,000 likes. In Toronto, the chief of protocol, Aretha Phillip, opened the official Remembrance Day ceremony with hundreds of veterans present by slamming Canada for its role in slavery and colonialism. Take a listen.
The City of Toronto acknowledges all treaty peoples, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants either in this generation or in generations past, and those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly those brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery.
Former Chief of Defense Staff General Rick Hillier wrote the following on social media in reaction to those outrageous comments: "We are nothing but sheep to put up with this condescending lecture at any time, but especially today, a day devoted to those who served and sacrificed to build a country that doesn't have that. Shame. Canada has no involvement in slavery and never has. Our country was the first to abolish slavery in the British Empire. We were the destination of the Underground Railroad. The only reason someone would actually say something so disgusting and disgraceful at a Remembrance Day ceremony is if they had a deep-rooted hatred for this country. If they genuinely hated old stock Canadians and wanted to make everybody feel bad on the one day that we are supposed to honor our fallen heroes. This is the kind of thing our veterans have to put up with. The one day that they are honored across the country, they get lectured to by a bunch of people who've never picked up a gun in their lives. The closest thing that most of these condescending politicians have ever got to combat is maybe playing a game of chess. But yet, they think it's appropriate to speak at a Remembrance Day ceremony and accuse veterans of being settlers? Oh, but if you weren't fully aware of what multiculturalism really means, it gets a lot worse. A Nova Scotia high school told veterans not to show up to the school in uniform because it might offend foreign students. The school had to backtrack due to a public outcry over this decision, but originally the school wrote that they had requested that veterans and serving members of the military wear civilian clothing because the Sackville Heights elementary community is extremely diverse, and some students who have come from countries experiencing conflict have expressed discomfort with images of war, which includes those of individuals in military uniforms. The Canadian military uniform is one of the few remaining national symbols that young people in this country can look at to figure out what it means to be a Canadian. The uniform is a national symbol. It represents everything about this country that makes it great. And yet, these woke schools are trying to appease foreign students, trying to appease the needs of foreign students over honoring our veterans. Presumably because foreign parents went to the school and said they don't want to have any celebration of the Canadian military. These things don't just happen out of nowhere. Oh, and how about this little video in which a York University lecturer and PhD candidate, Aliyah Khan, decided to film herself rolling down a window while she's driving past a group of veterans marching on the highway and shouting "F you" to them.
Fuck you! Oh. This is November 11th. I know, them.
She eventually deleted her entire social media over this because the Canadian people don't take this disrespect to our veterans too well. But before she did that, she actually doubled down on her comments. She wrote, "F the military and F the police for real." At the National Remembrance Day ceremony, as well as the Queen's Park Remembrance Day ceremony, which I was at, there was no reference to Jesus Christ. There was no Christian prayer, despite the fact that likely 99% of the soldiers that died in the First and Second World War were Christians themselves. No Christian prayer allowed. No reference to Jesus Christ. However, in Saanich, British Columbia, over on Vancouver Island, there was a reading from a holy book. And it turned out to be from the Quran. How many Muslim Canadians died in the First and Second World War? Just curious, I'd like to know the answer to that. And check this out, there was a pro-Palestinian protest at the Remembrance Day ceremony in Kingston as well. So, is multiculturalism everything it's cracked up to be? Was it everything you expected it to be? Is it as great as Justin Trudeau promised it would be? I was already convinced that multiculturalism in this country is a real failure, actually. That the decision to embrace foreign cultures at the expense of Canadian culture, at the expense of Canadian unity, has been an abject failure. But this Remembrance Day has really woken me up, and I think it's woken up millions of other Canadians. Watching that woman shout down veterans marching on Remembrance Day, and hearing the news of an Arabic Muslim song being played on Remembrance Day at an Ottawa high school, I just really couldn't get over it. It's hard to put into words how it makes me feel. And it might be dangerous to say it out loud on the show, to be quite honest with you. One thing I did think about, however, was Don Cherry. When Don Cherry pointed out the fact that many newcomers to this country come for the milk and honey of our country. They come for the benefit of this country. They come to take the benefit. But on the Remembrance Day, on the one day of the year that we are allowed to honor our veterans, they don't seem to care very much. In fact, they actually use it as an opportunity to shoehorn in their own personal and foreign protests, foreign causes. You see many of them wearing poppies these days? It's important to stress that millions of newcomers into this country do respect our heroes, do respect our fallen veterans. They understand Remembrance Day. But let's also not pretend that this is not happening. Let's not pretend that there is not a growing number of new immigrants into this country that seem to have absolutely no respect for our values, for our way of life, and for our flag. All right, everyone, that's going to do it for us today on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Harrison Faulkner, and this is Ratio.